They beat the door like they owned the morning. Knuckles, threats, even a metal bar clanging against the wood. Open up. This is our son's place. My toes pressed into the cool tile as sunlight crawled across the entryway like a witness. I turned the lock and pulled the door wide. They froze. My mother, Marvette, still clutched a crowbar. My father, Desmond, wore an expression halfway between righteous anger and confusion. And my brother Kalen hovered behind them, doing that helpless face he saved for when someone else needed to take the blame. No weapon sat in my hands. Just a thick spread of proof, bank statements, a lease file, payment confirmations, and one heavy folder stamped transfer of title. Every page wore my signature. What is that? Marvette asked, voice skittering. Receipts, I said steady, even while my pulse thrummed. This apartment you keep calling your son's. It's mine. Bills, deposits, owner's records. All me. My name is Neria Holt, and I am 32. If you think you know where this is going, breathe and follow me. Yesterday, at my dad's outdoor birthday lunch. White tents, plastic chairs sinking into soft grass, paper plates collapsing under potato salad. Marvette laughed into her sweet tea and told the cousins. Neria's just a tenant we let stay close to family. That unit belongs to Kalen. His investment. Folks nodded along like it was scripture. Kalen gave me a wink he'd practiced since we were kids. The kind that said, know your place, sis. I chewed a grape and swallowed heat. Last night I changed the locks. This morning they arrived with daylight and a crowbar, ready to take back something that never belonged to them. Desmond stepped forward, jaw ticking. You stole from your own blood. I met his stare. No, Daddy. I just stopped donating. Silence pressed against the hallway. Marvette lowered the bar an inch. Oof. The old look, the one that used to hush me at 15, tightened her mouth. You don't speak to us like that. We are your parents. I know, I said softly. That's why I kept forgiving you long after you stopped telling the truth. Kalen's smooth voice tried to cut through. You made this about money, Neri. You made it about ownership, I answered. I'm taking mine back. I set the documents on the entry table and slid from the doorway, sunlight warming my shoulder. You told everyone Kalen bought this. You told me to trust you with the paperwork. He used my savings, my credit, my name. Explain again how his name belongs on anything. Desmond's eyes snapped to Kalen. That true? Kalen's mouth opened, closed. She offered to help. It was supposed to be temporary. 6 years isn't temporary, I said. That's a plan. The only sound was a neighbor's daytime talk show murmuring through the wall. I studied my breath and looked each of them in the face. The mother who could turn guilt into gospel, the father who confused fear for leadership, the brother who wore entitlement like cologne. You came ready to break my door, I said. But the only thing broken is the story y'all told yourselves about controlling me. Eased the door shut. No slam, just a small click, and stood for a moment with my palm on the wood. Felt finally like my own. The calls started before noon. First, Marvette, chirpy and trembling. Neria, you're too sensitive. Come by and talk before you embarrass us. Then Desmond. Return those documents before we bring lawyers into this. Then Kalen. You really think this little stunt makes you a hero? I set the phone face down and let the apartment breathe. The fan ticked a rhythm. The fridge hummed. For once, peace didn't feel like a prize I had to earn through suffering. It felt like the baseline I'd been denied. Someone knocked. Light, not urgent. My upstairs neighbor, Trayvon, held a half-eaten box from the food truck on the corner. He glanced at my eyes, then the stack of papers. Heard commotion earlier. You good? Family math, I said. The kind where I'm the calculator and the ATM. He huffed a laugh and handed me a foil-wrapped taco. Don't let them drag you back into the debt they call love. I won't. I meant it in a way that felt new. After Trayvon left, Marvette's text arrived. All soft threats dressed as care. You're destroying this family. I stared at the message until the words blurred, then answered. I'm setting boundaries. That's construction, not destruction. By early afternoon, my doorbell chimed again. Marvette stood outside without makeup, eyes swollen from a performance that probably convinced half the church group. "Let me in," she said, less request than command. I stepped into the doorway but didn't move aside. Daylight washed her face clean. "Say what you came to say, Mama." "We made sacrifices," she began, voice pitched to catch sympathy. "You don't remember them because you're dramatic." "I remember plenty," I said, and ticked them off on my fingers. Covering the late mortgage when I was 22 so the house wasn't taken. Picking up your credit card to keep your score from dropping. Skipping my summer trip so Kaylin could go on that overseas exchange. "You want the entire list." Her features scrambled, half shame, half fury. "Your brother's business is struggling," she whispered. "The least you could do is sign the place over so he can get a loan. You don't even need it." There it was, the center of their storm. "Mama," I said, calm as fresh laundry on a line. "You taught me something important. In this family, love only counts when it's convenient." The answer is no. She blinked hard. "You'll regret this," she muttered, pushing a tear forward like it could move me. "Maybe," I said, "but it'll be my regret." She left with the same stiff shoulders she'd arrived with. I shut the door gently and leaned against it. Freedom, I learned, doesn't always burst like fireworks. Sometimes it lands like noon sun, steady, unignorable, warm on the skin you finally call your own. Around 3, a text from Desmond lit up my screen. "Family meeting tomorrow. Mandatory. No, please. No time. Just an order like always." I stared at it and, for the first time in years, didn't feel the reflex to obey. I gathered the folder, slid fresh copies of everything inside, and clipped on a bright sticky note. "Truth travels better in daylight." If they wanted a meeting, we'd have it outside, under the same open sky where they tried to play me small the day before, because the keys were always in my pocket. They just didn't want me to notice. Saturday came bright and wide. The kind of noon that leaves no corners for secrets. If Desmond wanted a family meeting, then we'd have it where everybody could see. Outside, in their front yard under that tired pecan tree they bragged about every Labor Day cookout, a folding table sat in the grass like a stage. Marvette had laid out lemonade, plastic cups, and the good napkins with gold edges, as if hospitality could soften history. Kaylin lounged in a lawn chair with sunglasses, scrolling his phone like none of this required his face. I arrived with a canvas tote, the folder inside thick enough to make its own shadow. Trayvon walked me to the gate and stopped. "You want backup?" he asked. "I've got it," I said, tapping the tote. "But wait across the street. Sun's nicer there." He nodded and crossed to the sidewalk, arms folded, quiet as a witness. Marvette pasted on a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Let's keep this civil," she said, the same words she used right before cutting someone at church committee meetings. Desmond took his place at the head of the table like a judge on a show that never had rules. "You sign the unit over to your brother," he said. "We'll handle the rest without more noise." I placed the folder on the table and slid it open. "Let's handle it with clarity instead." Desmond reached for the top page. His jaw flexed. He read the heading, then the numbers, then my name. Over and over. Stamped, initialed, recorded. "Where did you, who?" "County recorder," I said. "Bank statements, title transfer, HOA confirmations. Even the maintenance orders you asked me to run through Kaylin's email. You'll notice the bills tied back to my account." Marvette's gaze darted to Kaylin. "Tell them, baby." Kaylin pushed his glasses up, still performing unfazed. She agreed to help. Or family. It was a temporary structure. "Temporary things don't last 6 years," I said. "They transition. This never did because you liked it this way." A breeze carried the smell of someone else's grill down the block. It was also painfully daytime. Kids on scooters, a neighbor hosing dust off a Buick, Trayvon whistling faintly like he'd found a tune shaped like patience. Desmond flipped to the notarized page and went still. "This says exclusive ownership," he muttered. Yes, mine. I kept my voice even. Purchased with my deposits, repaired with my checks, managed under my name. There is no son's investment here. Only a story the three of you told until it felt real. Marvette's hand trembled around a paper cup. Don't be ugly, Neria. You know what your brother is carrying. His storefront slowed during the shutdowns. He needs collateral to refinance. Lenders are unreasonable. I slid another document forward. Pre-approval criteria from First Cedar Credit. They require the owner of record. That isn't Kaylin. So, this plan was always going to end with me sacrificing, then being erased. Kaylin laughed without humor. You love playing victim. I tilted my head. Victims don't have ledgers, they have losses. I kept receipts. Across the street, Trayvon shifted his weight like he wanted to clap. I didn't look at him. I kept my attention on the people who had taught me to doubt my own fingertips on my own keys. Desmond set the papers down like they'd burned him. All right, we hear you. You've made your point. Now be reasonable. Do right by the family and sign over a lien. Just a lien. We'll pay you back in. No, I said, because I'd practiced that one word until it felt like oxygen. Marvette set her cup down carefully. Neria, this attitude will ruin you. Boundaries don't ruin people, Mama. They reveal them. I let the words sit in the heat between us. For a decade, you called my giving love and called my questions disrespect. I'm done letting your definitions grade my life. The gate creaked and Aunt Clarine slipped in. Her visor tilted against the sun. She looked between our faces, then at the open folder. I came because my phone won't stop, she said softly. If this is business, do the business. If it's blame, I won't stay. Business, I said, and offered her a copy set I'd made in case someone tried to disappear the originals. Clarine skimmed quickly, eyes narrowing the way they used to when she checked receipts at the grocery register. These look clean, she said. Then to Marvette and Desmond. Y'all told me Kaylin bought it outright. Marvette bristled. We believed that at the time. Belief ain't a deed, Clarine replied. She slid the pages back to me and lifted her chin at Desmond. You wanted this meeting in the yard so the neighbors would see you still in charge, but control can't live in sunlight. It dries up. Kaylin slammed his palm on the table. So we just let her walk after everything we invested in her. Our sacrifices. I held his gaze. Name one sacrifice that didn't land on my plate for washing. His mouth opened then closed. A cardinal hopped along the fence, bright and sure of its color. Clarine pulled a chair closer to me and sat. You got next steps, baby? I do. Took a breath. I filed an owner affirmation with the recorder to block any fraudulent claims. The HOA has my updated contact for all notices, and I spoke with a community legal clinic. If anyone tries to file a lien on my property without contract, we will address it promptly and publicly. Publicly, Desmond barked. In the same daylight you chose, I said. Marvette's face softened, then hardened again like a cloud arguing with the sun. If you go through with this, don't expect us to help when you need us. I folded the folder closed. Y'all have trained me not to. For a long stretched minute nobody spoke. A toddler down the block burst into giggles, and a lawn mower coughed to life. Real life went on, indifferent to our performance. Clarine stood. I'm gonna put a pitcher of water out because the heat is disrespectful, and so are some of these words. She looked at me. Neria, you good to walk out with what's yours? I slipped the folder back into my tote and rose. Yes, ma'am. Desmond reached for one last lever. He always kept a spare. You walk away now, you're not welcome back. I met the man who taught me to fear disappointment more than hunger and said, clear enough for the pecan leaves to hear. I'm not leaving home, I'm taking it with me. I turned toward the gate. Kaylin's sunglasses hid his eyes, but not the flinch when I didn't pause to reassure him. Marvette pressed her lips together around 1,000 unsentences. Desmond stared at the grass like the right threat might still sprout. Outside the fence, Trayvon straightened. You want the shady side for a minute, he asked. Please. We crossed to the sidewalk where the maple threw a kind, dappled pattern across the concrete. Clarine lingered at the gate, visor bright as a small flag. I texted the clinic to confirm our file, then opened my notes app and added a new line under a list titled Things I Keep. Keys, documents, daylight. Trayvon handed me a cold bottle from his tote. To truth, he said. To truth, I echoed and tipped my head back beneath the blue. The neighborhood soundtrack swelled. Bikes clicking, dogs scolding squirrels, somebody arguing gently over dominoes on a front stoop. Noon held all of it without apology. Truth had always been mine. It just needed a yard to stretch its legs. By Monday, the neighborhood rumor mill had clocked in early and skipped lunch. Kalen posted sleek little captions about disloyal Roots and his friends, some of whom sat beside me in homeroom once upon a time, typed condolences like I'd died of honesty. I didn't answer online. Daylight was my only platform. At noon, I set up at a picnic table in Mapleview Park, spread my papers like dominoes, and made 3 tidy packets. Deed copy, payment history, owner affirmation. Trayvon jogged up with 2 iced teas and his crooked grin. If drama insists on being public, he said, proof should be too. You read my mind, I said, sliding a packet into my tote. Aunt Clarine arrived with a folding fan and her church hat turned to summer setting. Your mama called me twice, she said, eyes warm but firm. First to say you're unstable. Second to ask me to talk sense into you. I told her sense doesn't need an escort. We all laughed, small and real. Kids kicked a soccer ball nearby. The thump 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 like a heartbeat that remembered itself. My phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. First Riverbank, I answered and moved to the edge of the shade. Miss Holt, the manager said, smooth as a brochure. We're closing a pending credit application tied to your property. The applicant isn't the owner of record. Thank you for confirming, I said, and meant it. Would you like this documented in writing? Yes, I said. Email is fine. We hung up. I exhaled the breath I didn't know I was holding and walked back to the table. Good news? Trayvon asked. Clarity. I tucked my phone away and paper to back it. Clarine clicked her tongue. You keep your chin where it's been. People who live off you can't stand when you start eating your own harvest. Across the field, a few of my cousins set up a loud outdoor lunch. Foil pans, a Bluetooth speaker, laughter sharpened to cut. Cousin Reed noticed me and waved me over like I might beg for a plate. I waved back without moving. Clarine pretended not to see them and lifted the fan to her cheek like a tiny shield. A text blasted into the family chat from Desmond. Family cookout today. Bring peace, Marvette added. 3 praying hands and a heart. Kalen sent a sunglasses emoji. Trayvon glanced at me. You going? If it's outdoors, I said. Truth travels faster. We packed the tote and walked to my parents' block. The grill smoke rose like a flag. Tables lined the driveway with store-bought sides dressed up in ceramic bowls. Marvette spotted me and dialed her face to gentle. Neria, fix you a plate. I'm good, I said, tone even. But thank you. Desmond tapped the cooler, already playing host like nothing had cracked. We're a family. We won't let a little misunderstanding turn into a mess. Misunderstanding? Clarine murmured, but she let it float away. This was my conversation to own. Cousin Reed wasted no time. So, you really took the unit from your brother? He'd always loved a headline. I kept what I paid for, I said. And what's in my name? I set 1 packet on the table, neat as a place setting. A few ants leaned closer than they wanted to look. The notarized stamp glinted like a small sun. Kalen scoffed. You really brought paperwork to a cookout? Y'all brought gossip to a yard, I said mildly. Balance. A neighbor drifted over, pretending to hunt for the salt. Desmond shot him a warning glance. Control crumbled around the edges when witnesses gathered, and he felt it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't plead. I let the document speak in daylight while I drank Clarine's lemonade and asked Aunt Gwen about her tomatoes. The ordinariness was the point. Truth doesn't always need a podium. Sometimes it just needs a picnic table. Then Miss Jameson from the Eastwood Business Collaborative strode up with a clipboard and the kind of smile that means work, not performance. "Neria," she said, ignoring the hum of side eyes. "I saw your portfolio samples from last month's pop-up. We're launching a daytime outdoor incubator. Branding, client pitches, vendor signage, paid stipends. Your style fits. Interested?" The heat on my cheeks had nothing to do with the sun. "Yes," I said. "Very. We start with a lunchtime session at the Riverwalk this week. Bring what you've got." She pressed a card into my palm, met my eyes in a way that saw me, not the commotion, and kept moving down the line to recruit more vendors. Marvette watched the exchange, disbelief flickering. She'd always believed opportunity had to pass through her gate. Seeing it step over like it owned its stride unsettled her. "I thought you said this design thing was a hobby," she whispered, soft as a cut. "It was practice," I said. "This is business." Trayvon bumped my shoulder with his elbow. "Say it again so the ants hear it." I put the extra packets back in my tote. People who wanted the truth had read it. People who didn't would call facts rude and keep chewing. By late afternoon, the grill hissed low and the crowd thinned. Desmond cornered me by the hydrangeas, voice pitched for private, but not enough to matter. "You've embarrassed this family in front of neighbors, church folks, everybody. Fix it. Fix it." Their favorite verb. I pictured the list on my phone, things I keep, and added a mental line, my no. "I already did," I said. "I fixed my boundary." He leaned in. "You're nothing without us." I looked past him to where Trayvon chatted with Clarine, to Miss Jameson's card winking from my pocket, to a pair of little girls chalking flowers onto the driveway with bright pink dust on their fingers. "I'm finally something with me," I said. And it landed so quietly he had to step back to feel it. On the walk home, Trayvon tossed me a look. Proud moment. "You didn't flinch when the choir started." "I didn't need a choir," I said. "I had a chorus of stamps and dates." We cut through the community garden. Sun sitting high like it had decided to stay overtime. A woman watering collards waved at us, then at the tote. "Looks official," she said. "Just organized," I answered. He grinned. "Organized is how regular people win." Back at Maple View, we claimed another picnic table, and I opened a blank sketch pad. Logos bloomed beneath my pen. Clean lines, honest shapes, letters that stood up straight. Trayvon scribbled ideas on a napkin and declared himself creative director without pay. My inbox dinged. Subject: Eastwood Collaborative. Welcome packet. I swallowed a smile. The file listed schedule blocks. Riverwalk Lawn 11:30 to 2, Market Plaza 1:30, Parkside Stage 12:15. All midday, all outside, all mine to meet in the open. I replied with a simple, confirmed, and closed the laptop against the light. I didn't need this win to punish anyone. I needed it to anchor me in the life I was finally building on purpose. Across the way, a little boy practiced cartwheels that kept turning into confident tumbles. His mother clapped after each attempt like success wasn't a condition, just a rhythm. "Part of me wants to gloat," I admitted. "Trade it for gratitude," Trayvon said. "Gratitude flexes quieter and lasts longer." Noted. I tore the page with my favorite logo option and tucked it into the tote, on top of the deed. Two truths, same bag. What I owned and what I could make. Overhead, a plane traced a clean line across the sky. Proof that movement can look simple from the ground, even when you've wrestled like crazy to get off the runway. Let them mutter. Let them tweet. Let them call my boundaries rude. The sun had already cast its vote. The Eastwood Collaborative launch landed on a bright weekday at the Riverwalk lawn. Blue tents, folding easels, clipboards, and the kind of sky that dares you to lie under it. Miss Jameson, clipboard and efficient smile, handed me a name badge and a stall under a maple. I pinned mock-ups to a corkboard. Bold logos, clean type, colors that told the truth without shouting. Lunch session runs till 2, she said. Pitch like the breeze is on payroll. Trayvon set a portable table beside mine with a handwritten sign. Idea parking. A joke that somehow worked. Clarine arrived in a wide straw hat, fanning like she'd invented shade. I'm here to clap, she said, and to stare down foolishness if it appears. I laughed and then I saw it. Foolishness right on time. Desmond and Marvette marching across the lawn with Kaylin a step behind. Crisp as church. They dressed like respectability would do the talking. Desmond in a blazer Noon had not asked for, Marvette in pearls that caught the sun and tried to blind it. They stopped 3 feet from my table, forcing smiles for the vendors who glanced our way. We need a word, Desmond said, voice pitched for command. Pick any word you like, I said. But we're on city property and it's lunch hour. Keep it neighborly. Marvette set a manila envelope on my table like a gauntlet. We filed a family affidavit, she said, declaring the unit a shared asset. You can hand over a lien or we'll escalate. Kaylin folded his arms as if to punctuate. Miss Jameson materialized at my elbow. She had a habit of arriving the instant rules mattered. Is there a business concern here? She asked, professional and calm. Personal, I said. But it wants an audience. Trayvon slid a legal pad under the envelope with the kind of care one uses for hot pans. Document incoming, he murmured. I opened the clasp and sifted through. It was a stack of typed accusations wrapped in self-importance. Not a single notarized seal, no recorder stamp, just words dressed up to look official. I laid the top page down and tapped the blank corner where authority should live. No county seal, I said. No case number, no filing confirmation. An affidavit without a witness is just a diary entry. Marvette flushed, but Desmond wasn't done. He lifted his chin for the crowd. Our daughter is endangering our son's livelihood. We are asking for cooperation. A few heads turned. The lawn fell into the kind of hush that belongs to live theater. Clarine took one small step closer to me, fan stilling. Okay, I said, voice steady. I reached into my tote and pulled out the packet I'd made for exactly this moment. I laid the deed copy on the table, then the bank's verification email printed in black and blue, then the owner affirmation receipt with a recorder stamp bold as a sunrise. Since we're speaking in public, let's use public documents. Kaylin laughed quick and loud, trying to flip the mood. You really carry homework to the park. Daylight loves homework, I said. Miss Jameson glanced over the papers, eyes quick. These are valid, she said to no one and everyone. And this is a business incubator space. If you intend to harass a participant, I will ask you to leave. Marvette's pearls stilled. Desmond's mouth tightened. He wasn't used to being told no where other people could hear. A woman in a city polo walked up, council member Nia Porter in weekend clothes, though the posture gave it away. She'd stopped at my board earlier and asked a sharp question about typography. Now she assessed the tableau with a practiced read. Is there an issue? She asked. Desmond tried charm. Council member, this is a family misunderstanding. Families love that word, Clarine murmured. I looked at Porter. They want a lien without a loan and a claim without a deed. Porter nodded once. Then this isn't a city matter. It's documentation, and she has it. Her gaze moved to Miss Jameson. If anyone's impeding your vendors, my office will back your enforcement of event policy. Yes, ma'am, Miss Jameson said. An entire shield in 2 syllables. Marvette attempted soft. We raised her. I noticed, I said. That's why I keep everything in writing. A kid in a stroller began clapping for reasons of his own, which somehow broke the tension. A breeze lifted my banner and snapped it playfully. I tucked the corner back under a clip and felt my hands settle. Desmond tried one last time. You sign now, we'll forgive and forget. Forgiveness without apology is just amnesia, I said. And I have a very good memory. Porter tipped her chin toward the walkway. Let's keep the path clear, she said to my family, voice gentle but immovable. They stepped back like the ground itself nudged them. Kaylin flashed a smile meant for cameras that weren't there and muttered, "Unbelievable." "No," I said. "Documented." They left with their envelope of wishes. The lawn exhaled. Music drifted from a speaker near the fountain. Some old soul track that made strangers nod at each other like they shared a secret. Miss Jameson leaned closer. "You all right to pitch?" "Better than before," I said. "My table finally looks like my life, uncluttered." She smiled. "Good. You're up in 5. On cue, I wiped my palms on my jeans and stepped to the demo board. A semicircle gathered, vendors, passers-by, a couple of teens with skateboards across their backs, and Councilmember Porter with her arms loose at her sides. I pointed to a logo sketched in firm lines. "This one is called Porch Light," I said. "It's about honest welcome, the kind that doesn't ask you to shrink." I spoke about fonts that hold shape, colors that don't apologize, layouts that put information where folks can actually find it, menus you can read under noon sun, flyers that still look right after a thumbprint, vendor signs that tell you exactly what's sold and exactly by whom. When I finished, people clapped. Not politely, warmly. 3 shop owners lined up for consult slots. Miss Jameson whispered, "We've got a stipend for your hours, $900 to start, additional as you onboard clients." My throat tightened, not because of the number modest but mine, because the payment route read direct deposit, and Holt. And there wasn't a single middleman hiding in the line. Trayvon slid a fresh water bottle into my hand like a baton. "Anchor secured," he said. Clarine fanned her eyes. "I'm not crying. The river splashed me." Councilmember Porter lingered. "I know someone at the recorder's office," she said quietly. "If anything strange hits your parcel number, you'll hear from me. And I like Porch Light. Feels like policy when it's done right." "Thank you," I said, and meant it in all directions. The afternoon leaned toward that golden angle when shadows lengthen but the truth stays bright. I packed my board with a care that felt ceremonial. On top of the tote, over the deed, over the bank email, over the stamped affirmation, I laid the Porch Light sketch, ownership and making side by side. What I'd fought for, and what I could now build without asking anyone's permission. On our way out, we passed the fountain where toddlers tried to catch sun with wet hands. Trayvon hopped the curb like a kid, then matched my pace. "You know they'll try again." "Probably," I said. "But they keep choosing dark paperwork for daylight fights. And you keep choosing the sun every time." We cut through the community garden. Somebody had propped a handwritten sign near the gate. "Take what you need. Leave what you can." Next to it, a smaller note in blue pen. "Daytime only." I laughed out loud. "What?" Trayvon asked. "Nothing," I said. "Everything." I added a new line to my list when we reached the picnic table. "Things I keep, number 4. My work, paid with my name." The river kept talking. I decided to let it carry the rest of the noise away. 2 Saturdays later, the Porch Light pop-up took over the Riverwalk Plaza. White tents and straight lines, hand-painted signs, a brass band shaking joy out of the air. Everything was daytime on purpose, like the city wanted proof it could bloom in public. I set my display under a sycamore. Before and after boards from corner shops I'd rebranded that week, menus legible in noon glare, price cards that honored both the goods and the hands that made them. Clarine arrived with a cooler and that fanning wrist that could part foolishness like water. Trayvon hauled a folding bench and declared it the client couch. Councilmember Porter stopped by early with a thumbs up and a "proud of you," then moved on to help a vendor zip a tent flap. Miss Jameson, our Black American program lead with a name that always made people guess wrong, checked my time slots. Booked solid. He grinned. "Earn your daylight." "Absolutely. Here's the continuation and conclusion of Part 3, keeping the same tone, structure, and cinematic rhythm intact with your updated uncommon names." By noon, a steady stream found my table. I sketched on foam board, letter forms standing tall like they'd slept well. Money changed hands clean above board with my name on the line. Every ping on my phone was its own small hymn. That's when my parents appeared. They didn't march this time. They walked slower than pride, stopping a few feet away as if the sun had drawn a boundary on the concrete. Marvette held a plain white envelope. No theater, no stamps pretending to be law. Desmond's blazer was gone. He wore a short-sleeve shirt, like the day had finally convinced him. "Neria," Marvette said, voice steady but soft. "We came to return something." She offered the envelope. Inside were the keys I'd given back years ago when they insisted Kaylin needed them for emergencies. The tag still read family, in her careful handwriting. My chest ached and settled in the same beat. Desmond cleared his throat. "We withdrew that affidavit. It wasn't right." The admission fell into the music and stayed there, small and true. "We won't file anything," Marvette added quickly. "No liens, no noise. If you'll speak to us one day, we'll come to you honest. But today is your workday." Trayvon shifted behind me like a bodyguard learning how to relax. Clarine's fan slowed to a gentle wind. I looked at the keys, then at the table where my sign stood straight, then back to the two people who'd taught me how to carry weight and call it love. "I accept the return," I said. "The apology can wait until it's a habit." Marvette nodded, a glimmer of something human and unarmored crossing her features. Desmond looked at the ground, then at me. "You did good," he said, the sentence simple, expensive. They stepped back. No bargaining, no last-minute lever. Just heat, music, and the sound of a boundary holding. Business flowed. A bakery owner booked a brand kit. A teen entrepreneur paid cash for a stall banner that finally spelled her name right. Miss Jameson came by with a clipboard and whispered, "The next cohort needs a mentor who knows how to document and deliver." Stipend doubles. "You in?" "Yes," I said, smiling so wide the sun must have felt outdone. "Absolutely." Near closing, Kaylin hovered at the edge of the crowd. No sunglasses, no smirk. He studied the board where I'd labeled one concept porch light, a square, sturdy logo with a tiny radiant mark in the corner. "Looks good," he said finally. "Thanks," I answered and left the space quiet. He seemed to want me to fill it with rescue. I didn't. After a moment, he nodded once, like a man learning he could carry his own sky, and walked on. We packed down under blazing blue. Trayvon loaded the last easel while I tucked payments and contracts into a folder marked kept. Clarine hugged me so tight the fan squeaked. Council member Porter waved from across the lawn. Miss Jameson called. "See you Tuesday, same sun, new tables." On the way home, the river flashed like coins tossed for wishes already granted. We cut through the community garden where someone had pinned a handwritten sign to the gate. "Boundaries are a kind of love too. Daytime hours only." I laughed, and Trayvon added, "Put that in a logo." Like it was both a joke and a plan. Back in my apartment, windows open, light pooling on the floor, I set the old key tag labeled family beside my new stack of client receipts. One was memory, the other proof. I opened my notes and finished the list I'd been building since the first click of my own lock. Things I keep. Documents. Daylight. My work paid in my name. Peace I don't apologize for. I texted Trayvon. "Outdoor dinner." He replied, "Always." We ate takeout at the neighborhood plaza while the sky softened from bright to brighter, the kind of evening that still counts as day. A kid practiced cartwheels that turned into cartwheels. A drumline rehearsed 3 blocks over. The city sounded like a heart that knew its job. I didn't forgive everyone. Not yet. But I forgave myself for waiting so long to choose me. The porch light in my chest stayed on, even at high noon, a welcome I finally offered to myself first. Hey family, if this story made your chest tight or your eyes sting, you're not alone. This channel is for all of us. Please subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what part broke you the most. Your share, even a simple keep going in the comments. Those are the reasons I can keep making these stories. Thank you for standing with me. Till we see you on our next video. Bye.